On a quiet autumn afternoon, the small town of Willowbrook basked in the golden glow of the setting sun. The cobbled streets, lined with oak trees shedding their amber leaves, whispered with the gentle wind. In a modest house on the corner of Maple Street, an old man sat by the window, a trembling hand clutching a fountain pen. Henry Whitmore had spent his entire life writing letters for lovers who never found the right words, letters of apologies long overdue, letters of longing and loss. For 40 years he had been the town's silent scribe, crafting emotions into ink, sealing confessions within envelopes, and delivering hope through fragile pieces of parchment. But today, he wrote for himself. His ink-stained fingers shook as he carefully folded the letter, placing it inside an envelope with slow reverence. The address was simple: to my son. The son he hadn't seen in 20 years. The son who had left home in anger, whose voice had become a distant echo, lost in the years of silence between them. Every night, Henry sat by the window, watching the road, hoping. He had written 100 letters but never sent one. Pride was a cruel companion, and regret its faithful shadow. But time, Henry had come to learn, was even crueler. And now, with his breath growing shallow and his body frail, he could no longer afford the luxury of hesitation. The next morning, with the letter clutched in his hand, Henry stepped out into the crisp autumn air. The post office was just a few streets away, but every step felt like crossing a bridge long burned. His old legs wobbled, his breath came in short, pained gasps, but he pressed forward. Just as he reached the entrance of the post office, he collapsed. The world around him blurred, the sounds of rushing footsteps fading into a distant murmur. And then, darkness. When Henry awoke, he was in a hospital bed. The beeping of machines filled the room, but it was the soft voice that caught his attention. "Dad?" Henry turned his head, his vision adjusting. There, by his bedside, stood his son, older, wearier, but unmistakably his. How did you—" Henry's voice cracked. The young man held up the letter, now creased and smudged with tears. "The doctor found this in your hand and called me." His voice wavered. I read it." Silence stretched between them, but it was not the silence of the past. It was the silence of understanding, of healing, of words unspoken yet heard. Henry felt the warmth of his son's hand grasping his own. And in that moment, as the golden leaves danced outside the window, he realized that some letters never needed postage. They just needed courage.